In part 2 of Unlocking the Potential of Tech, the reality of blockchain and AI, Dr. Jemma Green is joined by Amanda Terry from MetaGood, who highlights the use of Web3 for positive global impact. Join us as we discover the challenges and triumphs in aligning technology and values to drive change, and gain insights from Amanda's dual role as an entrepreneur and investor. I'm your co-host Anthony Pearl, and whether you're an investor or a startup looking for insights, it's time to get unblocked.
Amanda, you mentioned ordinals, and tell us a little bit about your company. Tell us about OnchainMonkey and MetaGood. And then I'd also like to talk about investing, because you also mentioned that as well.
So MetaGood, I've co-founded with Danny Yang. I gave a little bit of his bio, and Bill Tai. We started the company in 2021. And really, as I mentioned, the impetus behind it was, how do you use Web3 for good? And is there a way to use tokens to align values and actions towards positive world impact? And, we were very inspired by Hanu Kitty and the work done there by Acti Global. And the thought was, how do you do that? But instead of just one NFT being auctioned off, how do you kind of create multiple collections that could create, economic value and positive world impact? So we launched the first 10,000 collection done in a single Ethereum transaction. So very energy efficient back in September 2021. And then, created really a whole community around innovation and impact. So we've always been very, technologically forward. That's been something that many people in our community definitely admire and kind of look up to Danny for kind of the technical prowess that he's brought to our NFT collection. But we've also done a number of things in the impact space. So, we won Fast Company's 20 best world changing ideas for impact investing. We donated some of our primary and secondary trading revenues to do things like, evacuate Sharbak Gula. She was the face of Nat Geo, the cover of the Piercing Green Eyes, for her family to get evacuated out of Afghanistan to Italy when the Taliban entered Afghanistan. There's an interesting story behind that with one of our advisors who was a former Nat Geo photographer and knew the photographer that had taken her picture and kept in touch with her throughout all the years. And she reached out to him and said, I feel like my family's life is in danger. Can you help? And there was a small nonprofit out of the UK that had helped like 330 Afghan women and children get out of Afghanistan. And so we were able to, fund that mission. We've done a lot in the coral reef restoration space. We've partnered with YGG in the Philippines to help rebuild homes after the typhoons came through. We've worked with the UNICEF project, UNICEF Giga Connect project. And actually, 3 weeks into our collection launching, we auctioned one of our NFTs, and Rowan from Dapper Labs and Charlie Lee, creator of Litecoin, bid it up to 12.5 ETH, and we donated 100% of those proceeds to help bring internet to children globally. We also helped advise them on their first NFT collection, which was called Patchwork Kingdoms. So we've done kind of a lot of work also in the impact space. And then when the Ordinals protocol came out 18 months ago, Danny really had the foresight to very quickly inscribe all 10,000 of our SVG files in Bitcoin in inscription 2021-9. And so those literally are the first 10,000 NFT collection inscribed on Bitcoin. At the time, the protocol wasn't even supporting some of the things he did, which, was the use of kind of parent-child, which is how you define like what an ordinals collection is, and recursion, which is the ability to kind of pieces of code to call other pieces of code. And this is a programmable feature of, the ordinals protocol, which was at that time not even fully supported. And so, we've done, a number of innovations. Then, we offered to all of our 10,000 monkeys on Ethereum. And through, the course of like 8 portals, we educated them on why ordinals are important and, got them to download a wallet. And, over 8,000 of our 10,000 collection on Ethereum teleburned over to Bitcoin, which was a huge thing. And that was the first time any collection has tried and successfully done anything like that.
Migrate.
Yeah.
To another.
Yeah. Well, upgraded, because it wasn't just getting your monkey on Bitcoin. It was actually 4 different inscriptions. So, one is a more like contemporary art version. It's kind of moving the shapes of your monkey around. One was a digital certificate of ownership. So it was actually like truly an upgrade because, went from Ethereum to now these 4 inscriptions. And everyone who participated in that then was kind of, when the Runes protocol launched, these fungible tokens, they're dropped tens of thousands per monkey of Runes tokens because a lot of the founders of these Runes projects wanted to kind of honor the people that had been early in the space. And so there were a number of airdrops that happened, right, for everyone in the OCM community, which was pretty exciting. We also, way back when we did the mint of another one of our collections called Karma, we put aside 2,000 ETH, which is almost, it's over $6 million into a DAO. And our community has been able to access the DAO via, they basically apply for project funding. And there's been over 100 projects that have been kind of community led and funded. Everything from doing a private party at the New York Stock Exchange for our monkeys during NFT NYC, that was kind of funded through the DAO, to somebody in Brazil actually renovating a Brazilian skate park where if you look from top down, it looks like an on-chain monkey. And, that space was kind of unusable. So it was kind of like creating, kind of revitalizing that area. And they did like a Brazilian rap competition there and they applied for some funding and got it. So there's been all sorts of people done on-chain monkey theme songs, which are now available on Spotify. All sorts of things have been kind of funded through the creativity and work of our very talented builder community. And then we also launched Oshura, which is spelled OSURA, Oshura.com. And that is a curated ordinals marketplace. We felt like the existing marketplaces really didn't showcase our art. For example, Magic Eden, you can't see easily the 4 inscriptions for our OCM Genesis collection. So we wanted to create we felt like a better interface. And so that marketplace has helped to launch iconic collections, like we did a collaboration with luxury brands Asprey, the jeweler from the 1700s, and Bugatti, one of the top luxury car makers, and they created 111 physical eggs. So they're carbon eggs, diamond encrusted. We created the NFTs for them, which were then you could trade them in for the physical egg copy, and those launched on Oshura. We also launched Patrick Amadon, who's an LA-based artist, for his first collection on Bitcoin called Disobedience. And just last month, we launched Alexi Andre, who is one of the top generative artists. His collection with art blocks on friendship bracelets had over 60 million USD in secondary trading volume. And he did his first collection with us on Bitcoin, which was long form. So it was a 10,000 collection, generative art. And it actually incorporated the traits of OnchainMonkey. So for any of our holders, they could select their monkey that would turn into the front line. So, and then the fur colors and, the rare earrings and actually the token ID were all incorporated into the art. So that was a first of its kind as well. There's never been a, long form generative art collection that incorporated traits from another collection. So that's just a little bit about what we've done, at OnchainMonkey, but it's truly kind of in, leading the way, I would say, in innovation and impact for NFT collections on Bitcoin and helping other artists. So my co-founder, Danny, actually inscribed libraries of code in an open source manner so anyone can use them. And a number of artists from Quantum Cats and Billy Resty to Hardo, who did Floriforms, have all used those code libraries to put their art on Bitcoin as well. So it's kind of a way that we give back to the whole ordinals community as well. So I've kind of gone a bit on the OnchainMonkey, but on the investing side, this fund was started before we co-founded MetaGood. It's called Acti Ventures. A lot of the Acti Global community are part of it. That's why, we give homage to the Acti Global nonprofit. But really the thesis is around digitization, making industries more efficient and processes more scalable and replicable. As you know, Bill was the first investor in Zoom. He also seeded Dapper Labs, Canva, and 23 publicly traded companies. All of those companies kind of fall broadly under this theme of, digitization, and basically large structural market changes and and then these companies leveraging digitization to make those industries more efficient. So that's one thesis. And then also just generally, we believe technology can be a force for good. Certainly, it's something that we hold near and dear to our hearts at MetaGood. But we look for companies through another lens, which are what is the positive impact that they make, aligned with the UN SDGs. And we've invested in 29 companies over the last 3 years, majority pre-seed and seed stage. It's about 60% of the capital deployed so far has been in AI related companies. I'd say another 40% in crypto related companies. Sometimes they overlap where there's crypto and AI being a focus of the company. But yeah, we have an incredible group of LPs, including yourself and Power Ledger, which we're very grateful for your support. But I'd say 80% of our LP base are founders and incredible founders of well-known companies, and then I'd say 15% are professional venture capitalists as well. And so I think it's been great to kind of bring our collective knowledge and experience and network to our portfolio. And certainly, we try to facilitate as many connections as we can. When we hear from our companies that they need something, there's usually somebody in the LP network that can help them.
Well, just to touch on, congratulations on everything you've done, Amanda. In the first instance around MetaGood, it's amazing just to hear. And that's really just a slither of the activities that you've worked on. I know there's so many more things, but really what you mentioned giving back, and it's not just to the artists, to communities, and also to the blockchain community as well with the open source tools. So you can see that theme is really front and center to how your modus operandi and Danny's modus operandi as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think for us, and I think even from the fund perspective, it's not giving or investing from a philanthropic perspective. I think we believe that companies that are making a large positive world impact actually also that translates to better bottom line financials and growth. And there's a whole generation of people that, now look at products and look at the impact of those products on our world, our environment, on the next generation, and they don't want to buy things that are not sustainable. And so I think even at MetaGood, when we launched OnchainMonkey, you can see this on the video, not on the podcast, but RISE is what people put in Discord and Twitter, and that stands for respect, treat everyone with respect, integrity, strive for the highest ethical standards, sustainability, rebuild for the future, and enrichment. We want to enrich our community to then be able to make positive impact in the world. And those are values that we announced very early when we started the company. And it's something that's really resonated with our community. And so if you go into our Twitter, if you go into our Discord, people are always putting exclamation point rise. And I think that's been a big differentiator for us as well as an NFT community, because there's a lot of collections that are a bit more about just like launching, price go up, transactional, and then, kind of, I guess you could call it like pump and dump, but that's certainly not what we've been, as a community that's been around, over 3 years and done, a ton of innovation and, continue to innovate and build. And as you said, contribute back to the larger ordinals community.
Amanda, how important is it to build that idea of impact into the DNA of a business, but from its infancy, rather than sort of adding it on later on? Does it have to be part from the beginning? Is that how you think it integrates better for business?
I don't think you have to know exactly, you don't have to have like the RISE values articulated from day one. I mean, certainly, that's something that we kind of came up with. I would say though, like a couple months into launching the company, we wanted something that could be kind of a mantra and rallying cry for our OnchainMonkey people to say, and that reflected our values. But I don't think, they don't have to happen from the start. But I do think, there are just founders that are more wired that way to think about, like every day, like when you wake up, like, why do you do what you're doing? To me, it can't just be for financial gain. That should be kind of in some ways the byproduct of it. But like ultimately, like if you're going to put all your time and energy and life and love into something, yeah, you want it to make, a lasting impact. Yeah. I guess your business legacy, in my view, it's, very powerful to do something that is obviously, impacting the world in a positive way.
I think there are so many things that even small businesses can do these days to make an impact, even in a small way, that can be integrated into what they do. And it all goes back to that kind of idea of purpose-driven and business for good, that kind of terminology that's now becoming more and more, integral into the way businesses think.
100%. Yeah, definitely agreed. And I think it's not just, I think it is integral. Like I think there is the current generation does look at, when they buy products and what is the impact of those products in the world, and they will not buy things that, have a ton of negative externalities. So I think it's not just a nice to have. I think it's actually, quite crucial for any business at this point and go forward.
I think I imagine also in an environment like the AI one that we were talking about previously, that there's obviously a fear of how much it's taking over jobs, all of that kind of thing. So being able to do something for good as part of that business is also critical to keep that flow and that feeling of that the business is doing the right thing from the outset.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of initiatives, we're involved with. I mean, Bill will be at a conference on Necker in September called ISL.ai. And, it's all about kind of AI and, what are the ethical principles, driving AI. And so they're kind of bringing a bunch of investors and startups together. And, I think one of our portfolio companies will be there as well. So there are definitely people looking to address that and kind of bringing thought leaders together. And, so I think it's definitely something that is on the forefront of many people in this industry's thoughts.
Amanda, tell us about how being an entrepreneur helps you be a better investor and vice versa.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, from an investor standpoint, just understanding the challenges of trying to operate a lean startup, right? Where you are trying to be as capital efficient as possible and, making decisions on what you think will be, the highest impact path, right? With sometimes somewhat limited resources makes me much more empathetic to any founder's journey. Also, really understanding that, that the team is so core, the founding team, to any startup, and that, ultimately a company may end up pivoting in their business, but from an investor standpoint, like looking at like who is the team, right? Because I've experienced that myself, like just understanding that team is so core, and also from an investor standpoint, like we're always looking for what are markets that are undergoing big structural changes, and understanding kind of the timing of things, right? Like the timing of the technology needing to be right as well. And that also, and I look back at the founder at MetaGood and looking at ordinals and kind of examining that space and understanding where are we on that curve? How early are we? How long is it going to take for the market to kind of grow? I mean, all of those things are things that I've, evaluated both from a investor standpoint and also kind of from a founder standpoint. But yeah, I mean, I think, generally, I think it's just made me stronger. I understand, what it's like to raise money from a founder standpoint. I've heard, thousands of pitches at this point now from a investor standpoint. So, when we're raising at MetaGood, I know kind of what investors want to hear in terms of the questions you need to answer and how to structure a pitch and how to get in front of investors. And then I think from an investor standpoint, that's, something that I can help our portfolio as well, coach them on, if they need to fundraise or hiring or ways to get things done in a capital efficient way. Those are all things, I've experienced as a founder, and hopefully can bring that advice and some of the knowledge in a humble way to some of our companies.
Yeah, it sounds like these things are actually quite intimately linked.
Yeah, and I mean a lot of it, and I feel like when you're kind of in the flow, it's like everything builds on each other, right? So if I go to one conference and I'm speaking on behalf of MetaGood and OnchainMonkey, I'm also attending, and maybe we're sponsoring the Bitcoin Startup Lab where I'm meeting other startups that we could potentially invest in. So everything, at least for me right now, it feels very aligned. There's like really no wasted effort. And, sometimes I'll meet an interesting company that maybe there's something I could, has some tie into MetaGood as well. And so, but yeah, I think a lot of at least what I'm focused on is very aligned in this space. And so it's I think it helps build on each other to be very in the flow of what's happening in the Bitcoin ordinals ecosystem, in the AI ecosystem, with startups, going to YC Demo Day. And, I attended the HF0 house, which is a AI demo day where they get, hundreds of applicants. They fly in 100 and they choose 10 companies. I think 4 of the 10 companies had unicorn founders previously. So, seeing those pitches, meeting those companies are things, I can learn and bring back even as a founder to my own company in terms of how we're pitching. And also certainly, I think, doing both sharpens your skills in both. And also just as a founder, when we're going to raise capital, in ideal conditions, you want somebody like a Bill Tai who has been investing and who has founded companies and has kind of seen all different scenarios. And, capital is capital. So if you can find people that actually can also advise from an operational standpoint when you need it, or from a strategic standpoint, or just key things you need, like, hey, we need to hire, we're looking for this type of marketing person. And if you have the right advisor network, hopefully they can help you beyond just providing capital. But a lot of that happens if they've had experience, building companies and they have a network to help you along those lines.
I think what you're saying is these things are mutually supportive, and I like your phrase, when you're in the flow, everything builds on each other. That's very elegant.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I feel.
Amanda, just to change topic slightly, could you tell us what is your favorite song?
Oh my gosh, my favorite song? I don't know, like favorite song in terms of listening, but in terms of like personal meaning, I like that song Edelweiss from Sound of Music. That was actually a movie I watched a ton with my daughter when she was little, because she used to love watching all the kids singing and like running through the fields. And I think, so that's actually one that I used to sing to her going to bed. So I think that has some personal meaning to me. And I think, in today's, also, I will just say, like, political climate, I think it's an interesting song as well to think about, at least in the US.
I mean, if she's into Edelweiss, you and her will definitely have to come to Switzerland.
Yes. No, we'd love to. Like I was just saying to Anthony, I think next trip to Europe, hopefully I can make it work to kind of extend beyond the work trip and bring her and stop by and hang out with you if the timing works. So yeah, I would love to get our kids together. Love to visit. I've never been to Zug. I've been to obviously, other places in Switzerland for various work conferences and for ski trips, et cetera. But I've not been to Zug yet. And I know that is kind of ground zero for the crypto community in Switzerland. So it'd be really wonderful to get out there.
Let's do it. Just lastly, what podcast do you enjoy the most at the moment?
Oh, I mean, I would say I'm not regularly listening to podcasts all the time, but I do like the Digital Currents podcast by Mark Yusko from Morgan Creek Capital Management. He's one of our investors. I think he's a super sharp guy, and they do a really nice job kind of bringing, it's a little bit more like finance oriented and DeFi oriented, but he's also very pro Bitcoin. He just joined the board of MetaPlanet, which one of our big OnchainMonkey holders founded, which is basically doing the MicroStrategy of Japan. So they're raising money and buying, a lot of Bitcoin, hodling it. And so I think he just has some really interesting guests that come on that show.
Amazing. Just before I wrap up, I know I said I had one last question, but this is really the last one, which is, do you have any advice, like with the best advice that a mentor gave you about being an entrepreneur that you could share?
Oh man. I mean, I think a lot of it, just, leave people and places better off than you found them, I think is just like a core motto to both what we're doing at MetaGood and also Active Ventures. And then I'd say one that I just like personally like to live by is, for the truly engaged, work and play are one. And I think I've been really fortunate, through the Active Global community to get to combine both. I like to kite surf. I go on these trips. I get to meet and connect with different entrepreneurs and also connect with some of our investors. And so I just feel very blessed in my life that, they said, a lot of things in the flow kind of build on each other. And yeah, to me, there's nothing else I'd rather be doing than kind of building MetaGood and investing. And so it doesn't feel like a job when you really are passionate and love what you're doing. I wouldn't say it's always play. It's definitely like hard at times, but it's just, how I enjoy spending my time.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much for joining me, Amanda. I think what I got from this conversation is that NFTs were something that was happening as early as 2018, and you got into crypto around that time as a result of some of the pioneering NFTs. And thanks for sharing about how being an entrepreneur makes you a better investor and vice versa. And it was great to hear about how you've invested in 29 companies in the past 3 years. And to do that, you've had to listen to thousands of pitches. And that your view is that your thesis for like Acti is that companies that are making a real world impact that translates to the bottom line. And the acronym RISE: respect, integrity, sustainability, and enrichment. And when you're in the flow, everything builds on each other, and that you like to leave people and places better off than you found them. For the truly engaged work and player one, which was really lovely. I like that a lot. But I think people won't necessarily know because it will get edited out, but you're also a mum. And Isabella, your gorgeous daughter, had visited us numerous times on this podcast, and you so calmly managed dealing with her and also doing the podcast and remaining so composed. So I think you are a master multitasker as well.
Thank you. Well, that's a very kind summary. I'm surprised you got like a lot of the highlights of kind of what I talked about. And yes, I think it's always, as you know, as a mom, kind of a balance also between, balancing little people and work. But I'm very grateful for the opportunity to share a little bit of what we're doing at MetaGood and what we're doing at Acti Ventures. And I'm excited to come visit you. And I'm sure there'll be some interesting collaborations coming out of that as well.
Without doubt. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
That's all for this episode of Unblocked. Please check out the show notes for information on Power Ledger and other contact information. We welcome your comments and feedback, and please hit subscribe wherever you are listening. This podcast was produced by Podcasts Done For You. We look forward to your company next time on Unblocked.